I absolutely hate doing drywall mud. What is better than doing drywall mud? Pretty much anything. But today I'm gonna give you some helpful tips and tricks to make the process a little easier and hopefully help you hate drywall mudding just a little less. Oh, and we're gonna do it with Rapid Set OnePass drywall mud. Bet you had no idea that Rapid Set cement makes a drywall mud. Let's make something cool. Well, if you are new to the channel, this actually used to be my backdrop where I had my Michael Builds logo sign over here. But I've gone ahead and cleared everything out, pulled everything away from the walls, threw up some drywall real quick. Now we're gonna get ready to mud and paint. Now, one of the things that's gonna make this process go a lot easier is gonna be by using the Rapid Set OnePass wall repair. But before we even get into that, I just wanna let you know that a lot of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years is by a guy named Ben that has a YouTube channel called Vancouver Carpenter. He has the most phenomenal and comprehensive drywall and drywall repair videos that I've ever seen. So please, don't subscribe to my channel today, subscribe to his. So let's get on with our first tip, shall we? Alright, so the first several tips I have for you for doing drywall mud comes well before you mix up any drywall mud. And honestly, probably the #1 tip I have for you out of any of these tips is very good drywall prep. Just simply take a minute to grab a spatula, run it across the wall, make sure there are no boogers and no frizzes. I mean, basically anything that's going to impede your ability to run a nice, smooth course of drywall mud. Stop it. The #1 culprit is your screws. These guys, if you don't sink them enough, you're gonna run right into them, and this is gonna make you very angry. So just take a minute, run your spatula across these screws. If you hear them, sink them just a little bit more. They actually sell these little drywall screw bits that are very, very inexpensive, and not only will they embed the screw far enough, but they will also not allow you to drill the screw in too much to where you rip the paper, because that's also not good. It's unfortunately very common to miss the stud the first time, so then you can create this kind of like little volcano that your spatula is going to get stuck on. Real easy fix for that. You can either just simply take a hammer, make a nice little indentation, or even cheap spatulas will actually come with a little hammering device on the handle where you can just give it a little. Anything you can do to turn that volcano into a crater is real good. When it comes to straight joints, and I'm sure most of you know this, but for those of you who don't, drywall sheets have these tapered edges on their long sides, and that's done on purpose so that when you bed your drywall tape and fill that in with mud, you will still get a nice flat surface. But when you have two ends that butt up against each other, or two cut pieces that butt up against each other, you no longer have that taper. So then what do? Well, unfortunately, with these butt joints, not much you can do to get a nice, perfectly flat surface. But one of the things that you can do to help yourself get a flatter surface and make for a really strong joint is cut yourself a nice size bevel on each side. This will allow you to get that mud and pack it in there really well and glue the joints together, making for a very strong joint. Also, I cannot stress the importance of changing your utility blade regularly to now you have a nice sharp blade. A dull blade is only going to make more frizzies for you. If you got tears in the wall like this, spray it with some spray adhesive. Scrape it smooth, wait for it to dry. You can mud over this and you're not gonna have any fear of bubbling. All right, we are all done prepping our drywall. We've gotten rid of all the boogers and anything that could possibly get in our way of getting a nice smooth coat of mud, except for one more thing that we have to address, which is down here. You wouldn't think it's important, but cut off the power to the receptacles if they're installed. It can be very easy to be spackling. Get your knife in here, touching these two contacts at the side. Give yourself either a good shock or injure yourself very badly. So let's go ahead and get to mudding and talk about what we're gonna use for mud. We are gonna be using Rapid Set's OnePass wall repair. They call it OnePass because you can apply it, sand it, and paint it within 90 minutes. So you can essentially make a large repair with this, have it sanded and painted all within one day as if it was never there. Now, I would like to say that this is a lot like a 20-minute mud where you have 20 minutes to work with it. But even with a 20-minute mud, you still can't paint the same day. You still have to allow it 24 hours to let all the moisture evaporate out of it before you paint it. Also, another really fun fact about this is that this is actually a cementatious material, so this can actually go outside and you can actually repair concrete with it. That's no lie. It's also mold resistant, so another thing that I've never been able to get past is they have drywall that is mold resistant and meant for bathrooms and wet areas, but they never had a mold resistant mud to go with it. So I was always confused by that, but now they do. But you can apply this in very wet, moist areas. It can actually go up to 1 inch thickness without any fear of cracking or shrinking. Now it does shrink a little bit, but very minimal. Oh, by the way, wear a mask while you're doing all this. I am not wearing a mask right now so that I can talk to you. Another very helpful tip is to add your water to the bucket first. You're gonna get a much more consistent mixture that way. Speaking of mixture, this is a 2 parts product to 1 part water mixture. But you're really going for a consistency of like pigeon poop. Sorry, that's a technical term. This is another tip I have, is that just always mix it with a mechanical mixer. Even if you're mixing up a small amount for a small repair, they even have these little mixers that you can put on the end of your drill. But if you don't mix your mud up well and you have dry spots, this is gonna happen. On this first layer, I like to use like a 4 or 5 inch spatula just at first. And now a lot of people, what they like to do is they like to go ahead, put it up here and apply it like this. You can do that, I guess, but you'll see a lot of the pros actually applying it sideways. You can get a lot farther with that with each stroke. Then take your tape, lightly embed it in the mud. Just go ahead and scrape it. Then I like to take that mud to wet the top. In the racing world, there's a saying that it's not about how fast you go, it's about how well you brake. Well, in the drywall and mudding world, it's not about how well you put the mud on, it's about how well you scrape it off. And it can be so tempting to just slap this mud on here as thick as you can in order to get it done in one pass and try to compensate for any possible shrinkage and then just sand it all later. But when you got all this mess up, this is going to be impossible to sand. So that's why just do it in nice thin layers and scrape and feather those sides. When I do this, I'm going to do this in 3 passes. I'm going to concentrate on this side by applying most of the pressure on this side. Then I'm going to scrape this side, applying most of the pressure on this side. Then I'm going to take one last pass and go lightly down the middle to feather it all in and blend it all in. So after this cures, I've got very, very little sanding to do. Just kind of hit it real quick to blend it, and that's it, I'm done. Now, a word of caution when working with this stuff. As with everything Rapid Set, this stuff does set up quick. When they say 20 minutes, they mean 20 minutes. Now, you can extend the time by using really cold water, but you can actually add Rapid Set's retarder called Set Control to this, buy yourself even more time. And you know, there's no shame in applying it like that as well if you're not that proficient yet. I am definitely not proficient yet. as you can see, take our tape and embed it. Oh, this will also be a good time to tell you, a lot of people will actually pre-wet their tape. That is a myth. Do not do that. It is not necessary. It's a waste of time. I found that it makes it much more difficult to apply. Remember that tear that we had that we sprayed with spray adhesive so that we wouldn't get bubbling? "45 minutes later, hit that with some sandpaper real quick. It'll be nice and flat. You'll never even know that tear was there. Remember the indentations we made with our hammer? Gone. Now, this may seem like a no-brainer, but this tip is very important. Keep your tools and buckets clean. Clean them after every batch. And again, this is another one of those steps that nobody likes doing, but maybe something to make this easier, have a sponge with the scour side. Makes things go way quicker, way easier. If you don't keep things clean, this could happen. Butt joints without the taper are really no different at first. Ooh. And that's what happens when you get boogers. Get rid of those boogers. Butt joints are tricky because you don't have that nice taper to fill all the mud in with. So you can never get a butt joint perfectly flat. So you've got to go wider so that you can create the illusion of flat. That's about as good as that one's gonna get for now. I've got a lot of boogers in this particular batch that I mixed. I don't think that I mixed it very well, so I'm going to let that cure, give it a light sanding, then go over it with a nice finish coat. But you can. This is a perfect example of how much havoc little dry spots and boogers in your mix can make. I went ahead and taught myself a new lesson, which brings us to our next tip. Mix your mud with the correct paddle. I was mixing it with a paddle that's meant for mixing paint. And when I was doing that butt joint up there, I couldn't understand why I had so many boogers and so many dry spots. This is why. It's just not meant to get in the corners the way this one is. Make sure you're mixing with the correct paddle. Inside corners. Absolutely everybody's favorite. And my biggest tip with corners is do one corner at a time. Just do yourself a favor, one corner at a time, no matter how much of a hurry you're in, because even if you are utilizing the speed of the Rapid Set OnePass, by the time you do all 4 corners and come back to this one, you can then do all 4 of the left corner. Then, by the time you do all 4 of those, you can come back and then do the right top corners. As far as the corner is concerned, I just want to make sure that I don't leave any big gaping boogers that are going to be very hard to sand away. The last thing that I like to deal with is all the screw holes in the middle of the panels. And by the time you've covered up all your seams and top seams and corners, there really shouldn't be that many screws left. Just go up, then down. Up, then down. The reason why it's so important to go in, whether it's right, then left, or up and down, if you just went in one direction, you will get an air pocket on the other side. So that's why it's good to go in the opposite direction. That way you hit that air pocket and you won't get any bubbles or voids. Just make sure they're scraped really well, and you will only have to very lightly hit that with a sanding sponge and you're all set. Now if you're just doing a quick project and you're probably never going to do a drywall job again, then just stick with the nice cheap plastic trowels and the cheap spatulas. But if you're like me and you do drywall every once in a while, it might be good to consider one of these hawks. They are a little expensive, but I'm always seeing Ben using one of these, and it looks like it's very beneficial, so I went ahead and grabbed one. But I always see Ben using a 12-inch by 4-inch or 3-inch trowel to do his wider coats. I wanted to give that a shot and see if this is worth a try. Everything up till now, I want you to forget about everything I've told you. All the tips and tricks out the door. This is my #1 tip. Get a 12-inch by 3-inch trowel and a hawk. I'm telling you, this is the way to go. Complete game changer. All right, now ready to put the vinyl skim coat on. But before I do that, just want to go around, make sure there's no peaks or boogers. Otherwise, this will happen. So right now I'm going to work on my flat joints, which are the joints that butt up to each other and they had that nice taper that I filled in and taped. The goal here is going to be to do a coat on this side about 10 inches out and then a coat on this side about 10 inches out. And it's going to be nice and thin, which, by the way, I'm going to mix up my mud a lot thinner this time and a little bit more runny than I usually do to make sure that I can feather these edges real nice. Now after I run both my side coats and feather the edges real nice, then I'm gonna run my trowel down the center very lightly, blending both coats together. But again, the goal here is to go wider, thinner, making sure that we have got a nice flat surface and you'll never know that these joints are here. And the finish coat on corners, we're gonna do it the same, but different. So instead of hitting each corner separately, we're gonna hit each side separately. And the reason for this is we don't want to get this really nice finish on one side, make it all pretty, then immediately hit it with the other side and then screw up that corner on that side. So we are gonna treat this line like a road going towards the corner. And on the first pass, we're gonna stay on the left side of the road, here, here, and here. Then, after we hit our other 3 corners, we can come back and stay on the right-hand side of the road. Here, here, and here. This is going to ensure that all 3 of our corners are gonna be very nice corners. All right, now for everyone's favorite part, sanding. And I 100% am going to wear a mask for this part. But if we've done everything correct, we shouldn't have to do much. I'm gonna use this sanding pad with, I've got 150 grit, maybe a little aggressive, but it's not too aggressive, for all the flat spots. And then I like to have one of these sanding sponges with the taper on one end for all the corners. They never tell you what grit these are. They just either will say medium or fine. I get the fine. It seems to do well. But again, if we've done everything right and we've skim coated the best we can, like say this spot right here, this is one of my flat joints. This has not even been sanded yet and it's already nice and smooth. All I should really have to do is just nice and light go over this. I really shouldn't even have to use a whole lot of elbow grease either, which is another reason why everybody hates the sanding part so much. Now, these are fine for doing a small project like this or for doing patchwork, but if you have like a whole room or maybe even a whole house to do, you might want to consider actually getting a sanding pole for that. It would make the job a whole lot faster and a lot easier for you if you have a massive project like that. Well, that's it. Done sanding. Kind of. I'm not going to lie. I did notice some voids here and there that I need to patch up, but there are only a few of them. Shouldn't take very long. And again, since I'm using the Rapid Set OnePass, I go ahead, I patch it up real quick, sand it 45 minutes later, and I can paint on it 90 minutes later. So some of these voids, all I gotta do is hit it with sandpaper again real quick. But after you're done sanding, definitely go over the surface, check with your hand, your feeler gauge, to see if you do have any voids that you missed. It can be very easy to look them over though until you get paint on the wall and then it just sticks out like a sore thumb. So what I do is I will take a work light or an LED light, something like this, which, by the way, you can get these real cheap at Harbor Freight, and this will point the imperfections out to you. So definitely something that you want to hit before you get paint on the wall. Another great tip, if you don't want something to get sanding dust on it, cover it with a tarp or a drop cloth. Now, just because this is a sponsored video doesn't mean I'm gonna lie to you and tell you that this mud is for everybody. I would love to tell you that I did this all in one day and was able to paint all in one day. But if you're good with one of these, you absolutely can get a whole room or a project like this done in one day and paint same day. Especially if you're a contractor and you've got that customer that needs their stuff done yesterday, this is absolutely the way to go. Especially because of its very low shrink capabilities. And very durable, very durable. There's a bug on the wall behind me, isn't there? But that's not to say that if you're new to this that you can't use something like this. If you're a novice and you have a simple patch job to do, you absolutely can use this stuff. Just the other day, I did a large patch for a family member because I'm gonna be having family over for the holidays soon and we needed to get this done now. So I cut out the bad drywall, threw up the new drywall, went ahead and sealed all the seams, waited 45 minutes, sanded it, and then painted right over it 90 minutes later. You can't even tell that there was water damage there. But if you are a novice and you've got a small project like this, you got this. And just remember, caulk and paint make you what you ain't. Look at how flat this wall is. Well, I still hate mudding drywall. I just hate it a little less.